Thank you, everyone, for coming, for joining your hearts together with those who grieve. We are here for Sam Klapman, to honor him, to pay him the ultimate respect, which is, as our tradition teaches, accompanying him to his final resting place. We are here to say goodbye. We begin with psalms and readings, linking Sam's life with thousands of years of Jewish tradition. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot deshe yarbitzeini al mei menucho, yenahaleini nafshi shovev. Yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Gam ki elech begeitz al mavet lo irara, ki ata imadi. Shivtecha u'mishantecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorai, dishanta v'Hashem en roshi, kosi rivaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai. Veshavti beveit Adonai leorech yamim. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters and restores my soul. He guides me on the right path, for that is his nature. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and loving kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of God forever. Mourning is the price we pay for having the courage to love others. Even in grief, we know the wonder of human life is too complex and too magnificent to be memorialized in endless pain. The gifts of spirit our loved ones give us cannot be measured nor weighed, nor can they be lost or even tarnished by time. Even in our darkest hours, we know some of their light and their warmth will always be with us, bringing comfort and courage, and in the fullness of time, healing and peace. The good things in life last for a short time, but a good name, a good reputation endures forever. Let me tell you a story, a Maisa. Let me tell you a story about Sam Klapman. He was a man who loved to tell stories and jokes, and that's often how he would begin his tales. Let me tell you a story. Sam Klapman, in Hebrew, was Shloim ben Yossel Ufega. He was born January 10th, 1931 in Winnipeg. He died this past Wednesday morning, September the 12th, the 3rd of Tishrei on the Hebrew calendar in the new year, 5779. He was the son of Joseph and Fanny Klapman, immigrants from Poland and Russia who met in Canada and brought their families together. His father, Joe, was a butcher. From 1943 till his retirement, he ran Klapman's kosher meat market on the corner of Alfred and Salter. Sam was the youngest brother of 8 in a blended family. And as the youngest, he was the one around to work in the butcher shop, very loyal to his parents and their business. He did deliveries. All hours of the night didn't matter. He was driving at age 14. Which meant it was a bit of a funny story when he went down to the police station to try and apply and get his license, and they said he wasn't old enough, so he shrugged his shoulders and drove home. Sam Klapman was the husband of Ruth for 68 years. They met as teenagers. She was actually an older woman. They were neighborhood kids in the North End who used to get together, part of a group of friends who always met up on Sundays at the grocery store at the corner of Burroughs and Powers. They would bike to City Park. They would play games. They had different games back then. One of the games, Ruth told me, was called Kick the Can Around the Corner. I guess you had to work with what you had. But they were friends from teenagers and married when Sam was just 19 and Ruth was 20, February 12th, 1950. They started their family in a house on Matheson, then moved to Montrose Street in River Heights in 1960. Sam Klapman was the father of Sandy and her husband Sam, of Marla, of Hartley and his wife Drew, of Jody and her husband Brian. He was a grandfather, a Zadie, to Andrew and Hillary and Alan, Aaron, Jason and Stephen, Dana and Brady, Carly, Jay, Hannah, Gabby, Kevin, and a great-grandfather to Flory. But most people, many people, did just call him Zadie, or Schloim, or Zadie Schloim, or just simply Zadie. He grew up in the North End, went to Aberdeen and McRae schools, and at 16, he went to Camp Shiloh in Carberry, where he learned to drive a Bren gun carrier, and as an excellent sharpshooter, earned the impressive rank of marksman at just 16. Hartley tells a story years later. He was a student at Ravenscourt, and they had this father-son day on the shooting range. And Sam, of course, was the best, went 10 for 10, perfect. Afterwards, they were looking at his sheet. I don't know what they call it. I've never fired a gun before. And they could only find 9 holes in the bullseye. And they said, well, you only fired 9. I fired 10, Sam said. And they found that one of the holes he had shot through perfectly again. This is a glimpse into Sam's love for what can only be described from that day and time as manly pursuits, guy things. He loved to fish, loved to fish. He loved to boat. He loved to smoke cigars, drink scotch, tell jokes, and play cards with his buddies. They played kaluki and later poker. Later in life, he enjoyed golf, and he especially loved playing horseshoes. He had many, many close friends, good friends, and loved spending time with them, always just to have fun. He loved to sing. He loved to dance. He and Ruth would shut down parties on cruises and at New Year's Eve get-togethers. He loved to joke. He loved life. He was also a man with high expectations and high rates of success. Everything he touched, everything he did, he wanted to be the best. And often he was, over and over, a winner. His drive, his determination fared him well in business. He had ambition and a true entrepreneurial spirit. From a job as a preteen with his older brother at Winnipeg Beach selling tiny spruce trees to tourists getting off the trains for 25 cents or 50 cents if you wanted the boys to plant them for you, to a small business doing toaster repair, to age 16 when he left school and went to work for his brother, Meyer, at Peerless Garments, and 23 years later, 1971, he went out on his own with Midwest Garment Company, which still operates today. In business, he was a visionary, with unbelievable instincts for predicting trends in the manufacturing industry. He was savvy enough to recognize technology was the future. He was an early adopter of new technology, installing computerized systems at his business as early as 1979. And in his personal life, he was quite surprisingly savvy with technology, too. His retirement at age 60 was spent at Winnipeg Beach and in Palm Springs, where Sam and Ruth started vacationing back in the mid-70s and brought their family with them countless times, children and grandchildren. At the beach, he opened his wood shop, his studio, and got to work building. He was a fixture in the Winnipeg Beach community, well known around town. He was a man who worked so much and so hard when he was younger that now he was able to devote more time than ever to his family, to his children and his grandchildren, by whom he was absolutely adored. He was warm and comforting, but also encouraging and inspirational, as you will hear from many of them who will speak today. These are just the outline sketches of the man Sam Klapman, to fill in the character and the stories about his life that will ring true years from now. I'm honored to call up members of his family, beginning with his daughters, Sandy, Marla, and Jody.
As a small child, I remember feeling safe and loved with my dad's strong arms wrapped around me in a hug, and often the smell of cigar smoke with those hugs. Things were pretty hectic in our household of 4 kids and a large dog, but would calm down once he was there. He had a way of putting an overwhelming issue into perspective, and there were always many issues. He did this by making a joke or singing a song to ease the mood. As a child or adolescent, this was very frustrating, but in the end, the tears would turn into laughter. We are fortunate to have so many fond memories of time with our dad. The fishing trips we took with other families on May-long weekends to Lake of the Woods stand out. How brave of those parents to take small kids on such exciting adventures. I don't recall anyone falling overboard. I didn't have the patience to just sit in the boat with my line in the water. I would always be reeling it up and down just for something to do. He would say over and over, "If you want to catch a fish, your line has to be in the water." Years later, I would hear the echo of his voice about many things with the same sort of sentiment. Be patient. All good things come to those who wait. My father was dedicated to our mother and her parents, as well as his own parents. He loved to be with our family and extended family. Our summers were spent at Winnipeg Beach, first surrounded by Dad's brothers and sisters and their families, and later with the grandkids when they would come to spend time at the cottage. He called his grandchildren his dividends, and they all loved being with their Zedek, on the boat or in his workshop or just hanging out on the deck. His fondness of being with family has carried over to the next generations. We all love to gather and celebrate with each other in good times and support each other in the not so good times. Our dad was honest, caring and supportive, and so respectful of everyone. He is an example to us all. We will all miss those strong hugs and cherish him forever.
I'm not going to speak of my father's great accomplishments in his work or community, because you all know about that. And while it defines the person he is, that's not who I saw him as. To me, he was just my dad. He was an amazing person. He had a unique and different relationship with each one of his children and grandchildren. He seemed to be able to morph into whatever kind of person you needed him to be, and gave you emotionally whatever it was you needed. Although we lived 2,000 miles apart, he was always there for my kids. My dad traveled the world earlier on for business and then with my mom for pleasure, often on faraway adventures. While Dad did not seek out thrills, he did love a good adventure. Many years ago, we were stranded on the lake for hours, far from home, in our broken-down boat with Bubby and Zadie in the blistering sun. We drifted to the closest dock to figure out what to do. Maybe it's because the aggravation belonged to Brian and I, and not him. He had the best time as we planned and executed our rescue operation, which took the better part of the day. He was always up to come with me to country auctions. Once we didn't realize the two of us were bidding against each other for a canoe, standing on opposite sides of the auction boathouse. He had heard us talking earlier about how we had wanted to buy a canoe. Dad used to joke about our beloved Zeta Reuben, that he would never go anywhere. Zeta Reuben would always say, "Setzen in der Heim." I'm probably not saying it right. You should stay at home. Even just suggesting going out to eat, Zeta Reuben would say, "I can eat Setzen in der Heim." I knew that my dad was not feeling well last year when all my adventure suggestions were always being met with, "Jody, I can do whatever it is I was suggesting. Setzen in der Heim. Setzen in der Heim." Many evenings the phone would ring at home in Toronto. If I was the one who answered, the person on the other end would not say hello, but ask for either technical support or the order desk. It was my dad having a computer or Netflix problem or trying to work through a glitch on the Amazon website, wanting to talk to Brian. Really, he just enjoyed their chats and used it as an excuse to call. As he became ill and the calls got fewer, Amazon would call Dad in the evenings. Brian really missing their chats. In recent years, I started visiting my parents monthly, sometimes more, and my favorite time with my dad was in the morning. Both early risers, we would meet at the breakfast counter, either in Winnipeg or Palm Springs, in our jammies. Dad with his toast, peanut butter and jam and black coffee. I would skip the jam and add milk to my coffee. During times when Hannah was visiting, I would pretend to sleep in once I realized she shared the same early morning times with her Zadie. Dad and I would chat about little things happening in the day or the big things happening in the world and decide that we could solve nothing. Then, without a word, he would take the front of the newspaper and start to read while I took the back with the crossword. Shower, dress, and quick trip to Costco together for bananas, which was always just an excuse to go to Costco, something we both loved to do. For the last several weeks since he's been in the hospital, I've been coming and staying in Winnipeg much more often, but skipping breakfast at the counter. It's just not the same. My father's happy place was at their Winnipeg Beach cottage with his woodworking studio. He drove his pickup truck to various furniture factories, picked up scraps, and crafted them into now classic end tables that can be found throughout our family in Winnipeg, of course, but also Montreal, Ottawa, Toronto, and Bracebridge. He made them in custom stains to match whatever you wanted. They are sturdy works of love we all use on a daily basis, talk about on almost a daily basis, and they will now keep him with us forever. We have many more graduations, weddings, lots more to fell over. I can't believe he won't be there.
Thank you. It's now an honor to call up any of the grandkids who would like to come and speak on behalf of their Zadie.
First, I would like to thank all of our extended family and friends of our Zadie, members of the community who have sent their best wishes and thoughts and prayers to my Zadie during the time of his illness, and who have expressed their condolences since his passing on Wednesday morning, and for everyone for coming. I wanted to come up here today to share some sentiments that I've felt about him recently. I'm sure many of you have stories to share, and I look forward to hearing them from you. Death itself is not so sad It's simply a moment in time when a person stops breathing and their heart stops beating. It's essentially just a transaction between this world and whatever the next stage holds for us. The loss we're only beginning to experience is what is truly sad. Just a few days ago, I sat by my Zadie's side at Riverview Hospital, and I'd just begun to come to terms with the fact that he was past the point of no return. I cried and I held his hand, and I told him how much he means to me and my brothers, my mom, my cousins, my aunts, my uncles. And I told him how incredible a feat it was that he, along with my bubby, always managed to be there to celebrate with us. And I told him I never really imagined life without him. Even today, a small part of me believes that I'm going to walk down those stairs and give him a kiss on the cheek, and he'll tell me he did a great job up there. So that's when the real sadness will begin, when I walk down, kiss my bubby, and for the very first important time in my life, he won't be there. The true sadness of Zadie's passing began at the hospital and will grow with each important milestone that he'll be absent from. I do want to take a minute to express how fortunate I truly believe we've been to have had him and our dear bubby in our lives for every yontif, birthday, graduation, recital, going away, welcome home, every important milestone, and even what most would consider very minor events. Our bubby and Zadie have always taken every opportunity to celebrate with us. The greatest gift he left behind is the gift of family. For many people, a cousin, an aunt, an uncle is just someone that shows up at holidays, whether you like it or not. But for me, I know I speak for my entire generation of my family, that we're all part of a big immediate family. I thank our bubby and Zadie for that gift, which we'll have for the rest of our lives. For always having made it their top priority to bring all their kids and grandkids together, and somehow during those times also managing to spend one-on-one time with each of us. Zadie's door was always open. And any chance to spend just a few moments with us, like picking us up at the airport or bringing us for a quick errand, watching nature documentaries on Netflix, was always welcomed. We're even more fortunate to still have our bubby with us. And I know every one of her grandkids will cherish every moment even more now than before. There will forever be a void at the head of the table, and every time we gather will be a reminder of what we lost. So I ask you all to please help to make his memory a blessing, as his presence always was. Thank you.
You can't catch a fish if your line isn't in the water. I remember when I first heard that line, Auntie Sandy, sitting in frustration at Winnipeg Beach on the pier, throwing my line out, bringing it back in, throwing it out and bringing it back again. Again and again, no fish. Kevin, my Zadie, said, "You can't catch a fish if your line isn't in the water." At the time, I am not sure if anyone realized the impact of what that would mean to me, and certainly many of my other cousins. This quote became one of the pillars of my life to jump in head first. And accomplish something. It stood for something beyond fishing. It was how my Zadie lived his life. It is only now that I realize the impact it and he has had on my life. The line is my guide, and it has taken me places. He has taken me places. That have ultimately made me who I am today. It was not too long ago. Zadie has given me many rules of life, pieces of wisdom, Yiddish lines, jokes, and memories. It was not too long ago that my cousins felt bad about not giving me a last-minute ticket to a Jets game on a recent visit. But in fact, it was me who felt bad for them that I got to watch. Then I got to watch the game in the hospital, just me and my Zadie. I'm the lucky grandchild that gets to drive Zadie's truck around Ontario, reminding me of him on a daily basis. I'm reminded of Zadie every time I put on my tallis and have the weight of the beautiful Atara Bubby and Zadie got for me in Israel. My tefillin are very special. When Zadie and I were in Jerusalem, he finished the writing of the text in the scrolls, and together we inserted the scrolls before they were closed. Zadie, there won't be a day that goes by where I don't remember, where I don't use one of your many pieces of wisdom.
I was just a month old when I took my first plane ride to visit my Bubby and Zadie in Winnipeg. I'm convinced that the only reason Air Canada continues to offer 8 daily flights between Toronto and Winnipeg is because of my family. Growing up, our Zadie and Bubby did not miss a thing in Toronto. Every little ceremony at school, every dance recital or simcha, our Zadie and Bubby were in the crowd. Clapping along to songs at our Sidur Tanakh ceremonies, singing the blessings with us at our model seders and Havdalah ceremonies, and beaming with pride as we walked across the stage to receive our diplomas, there was no distance that would prevent them from being there. As you can imagine, that is a lot of visits over the course of the year, but nothing made my Zadie happier than being able to celebrate with us. When I got engaged 6 weeks ago, no one was more excited than my Zadie. You would not be surprised that all my Zadie wanted to do was celebrate. After a couple of l'chaims over FaceTime, Jay and I flew to Winnipeg to have a l'chaim in person. My Zadie put on a dress shirt and marched out of his room with a giant smile on his face. He wanted a simcha, and that is just what he got. It was a night I'll never forget. My Zadie was happiest when surrounded by his grandchildren. There was nothing too small to celebrate, no milestone not worthy of a l'chaim. My Zadie told me that he lived the sweetest life, a life better than he knew existed, and I know I will pass down his love for celebrating and family from generation to generation.
Visiting Bubby and Zadie in Palm Springs is something that I would look forward to every year. For as long as I can remember, our flight would land, we would be on our way to baggage claim, and I would see Bubby and Zadie from a distance waiting for us with the biggest smiles on their faces. I was so lucky that I could spend the next 2 weeks straight with them. Every morning, for as long as I could remember, I would set my alarm for around 7 a.m. I would make my way to the kitchen and find my Zadie eating his peanut butter on toast, reading the newspaper, and sitting in the same chair that he always does. I would make my breakfast and sit on the chair directly beside him. Everyone in the house would be sleeping, although now I know my mom was just pretending. And it was our time to spend quality time together. Whether we would be talking or sitting together in silence, I always felt so lucky to have that time alone with him. Zadie, I can't explain how much I will miss these moments together. I will miss holding your hand and sleeping on your shoulder as we watch TV before going to bed. I know how lucky I am to have had you as my Zadie, and I love you.
When I look back on all of the memories that I made with my Zadie, what stands out the most to me is the way that he treated people. I think back on all the interactions I saw him have with my Bubby, the way that he loved her and respected her and treated her with all of the patience and kindness in the world. My Zadie was a friend to everyone. Whenever we'd walk into the door at Bernstein's together, someone at every table would get up and stop him and say hello to him. He invested time and energy into every person that he met, whether it was staff at the deli or the doorman in his condo building, or the members of his own family. He was never too busy to stop someone for a conversation, ask about their kids, or ask how their day had been. There was nothing that my Zadie loved more than being with his grandchildren and celebrating all of our milestones. For him, there was no accomplishment that was too small to celebrate, and sometimes we'd get together with no occasion at all. Zadie was always there to celebrate each of our achievements, and he was the first one to let us know how proud he was of all of us. The way he cared so deeply and genuinely for everyone in his life and treated everyone like family is what I hope to carry forward with him. He taught me and showed me how to love people deeply and unconditionally, and that is something that I'll always be thankful for.
I am one of the people that he chose to love unconditionally. Don't know why I did this last time. Listen to everybody else cry, and now I have to say something. When you join a family, the way that I joined the Klapman clan, you're never sure how you're going to fit in or be included. But Zadie made me sure from the first moment I walked in the door that he was just going to make a little extra space and a little extra room and make me one of his own. Oh, the last conversation I had with him in July before I had to fly back to university, I took a minute by myself, just him and I squeezed his hand and I thanked him for always making me feel like I was one of his family. And he looked me in the eyes and said, "Of course you're one of my family. You're my grandchild and I love you. How else would I have treated you?" And if anything says a lot about his character as a person and the way that he saw the world, I think that does. And I am grateful beyond measure for being included in his family and for everything that he did for us. But most importantly, I am grateful that from a very young age he taught me that family is not who you're born into, it's who chooses to love you, and that there's always room for more people to love. And I think that a lot of the way that all of my cousins have treated me and included me and loved me comes from exactly that sentiment, that there's just always a little extra space in your heart and in your home for more people. And I don't know that they realize how incredible that is. And that is him, and we are all grateful for that.
Thank you, everyone. There's so much love in Sam's family for him in this room. He was an example to everyone by the way he lived his life, a man of strong character. He was thoughtful, he would think before he spoke, understated. But he believed to be ethical in the way he lived his life, the way he did business, to be able to look himself in the mirror at the end of the day. He accomplished so much in his life and was proud, but he never bragged, he never boasted. He always let his actions do the talking. And in the background, without any fanfare, he always continued to help so many people. Throughout the time that he was in Riverview, people would visit, and the family would tell me, they would hear stories of things that Sam had done for this person or that person, stories they had never heard before. He was a proud Jew. He loved embracing traditions with his family, especially his grandkids. He was a strong supporter of Israel. He was a strong supporter of the Winnipeg Jewish community, a generous man. Not only gave, but encouraged others to give back as well. I am thankful that I got to know him, talk with him on some occasions. We visited just a couple of weeks ago, and it dawned on me, he had huge hands. If you ever shook his hands, you know he had huge hands. I once shook Gordie Howe's hands, and Sam Klapman's hands are as big as Gordie Howe's hands. And in an email that was shared with me from a friend of a friend, someone in the family, I thought it was very apt that that person also remarked on the hands and described them as simultaneously strong and comforting. And you've heard descriptions of hugs. That's true power, truly powerful to be strong and comforting at the same time, which is what Sam Klapman was, not just his hands. But maybe his greatest accomplishment was that he made everyone feel like family. That's why so many people who weren't his grandkids called him Zadie. And the story that stood out to me from one of my visits to Riverview was that years ago, Kevin, one of the grandkids who doesn't live in Winnipeg, had come in from out of town to surprise him. I don't have all the facts right, but the gist is the important thing. To surprise Sam and Ruth out at Winnipeg Beach. And everyone went out, and they saw Sam walking towards them from a distance, and Kevin's calling out, Zadie, Zadie. And Sam's not really moving towards him or noticing him or really doing anything special. When they finally meet up, Kevin says, I was calling you, Zadie. Why didn't you come over? And he said to him, Sam said to Kevin, Kevin, you have to understand, around here, everybody calls me Zadie. And when I heard that story, as you've all heard it just now, it makes you realize that says a lot about a person, that everyone, random people, strangers who aren't strangers at all, would feel like you were that close that you call them an adopted Zadie. Someone you trust, someone you admire, someone you look up to and respect. That was Sam Klapman. He wanted to leave a legacy for his family, for his community, to leave a good world for future generations so that they may go from strength to strength. I think there is no doubt we can agree Sam Klapman succeeded. I invite you to rise for the El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein B'Meromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah, V'malot Kedoshim Uteorim, Kezohar Arakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Shloime ben Yosel Ufega Shalach Leolamo. Began, Eden te menuchato, Anabal harachamim, Hastireu beseter knafecha, Leolamim, Utzeror b'tzeror achayim, En nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, V'yanuach v'shalom, Amishkavo, V'nomar, Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Sam Klapman, Shloima, son of Yossel and Fega, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us say Amen. Please be seated. Our service continues at the cemetery, the Shaarey Zedek Cemetery, located at 230 Armstrong Avenue for interment. We will be traveling in caravan fashion with our four-way flashers on. We invite you to join us in procession. We will be stopping for all red lights along the way. After the cemetery, the round trip will probably take about 90 minutes from the point we leave. We'll return here to Shaarey Zedek for a meal of consolation as we begin to turn our focus to those who mourn, Sam's family, who have been left behind to grieve. And we continue to give them courage, comfort, and strength. Shiva will be held at 141 Wellington Crescent in the common room on the main floor. Visitors are welcome on Sunday in the morning between 10 and 12, and in the evening between 6 and 9. Davening prayers will be at 10 in the morning and at 6. And then on Monday, between 2 and 4 in the afternoon and 7 and 9 in the evening, with davening on Monday at 7. First, we'll allow the pallbearers and the family to exit through the chapel. We'll open the doors at the back as your signal to leave. And we ask that when you leave to observe a custom, a long-standing tradition here at Shaarey Zedek, to form 2 rows on the sides, on the ends of the stairs, for the casket to pass through, so that we can, in fact, fulfill the mitzvah of accompanying Sam to his final resting place. To the mourners, we say, Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch sha'ar avelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May you be comforted among all those who mourn in Zion and in Jerusalem. I invite the family and the pallbearers. Please exit the chapel. To everyone, again, thank you for coming.